Day 756 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzie here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So, starting off, we'll take a look at the Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 433,000 military personnel losses, which represents an additional 750 in the past day. Then as for hardware losses, 4 tanks, 16 APVs, and 26 artillery. Then we'll head to the map and start out in Russia, and firstly with Belgorod, as the morning started with explosions and air defense operating over the city. And then we also saw the appearance of what was likely the anti-Kremlin insurgent forces utilizing FPV kamikaze drones to destroy a Russian Ural truck. And if you look closely enough, the truck was parked at the end of the yellow brick road of cope cones. Which very seamlessly brings me to my next point, because the regional Belgorod government also stated recently the creation of roadblocks being formed near to the frontline zones in locations such as Kazinka, Glotova, Goropodol, Graveron, just to name a few. So it's technically accurate to say that they're losing access to and blocking out their own lands and effectively conceding that sovereign space of theirs to another party. My larger point being here is that events like these are truly an embarrassment for Russia, all because their military has been almost completely overutilized, overextended in the Russo-Ukrainian War. Oh, not to mention, Russia are the ones that invaded first. Now they're getting invaded right back. Then moving along on the map to what was once known as some of the outermost limits of Ukrainian drone range capabilities. Because about 24 hours ago now, there was an overnight attack on Russia's Engels base in the Saratov Oblast, and likely targeting Russia's strategic long-range aircraft such as the Tu-95s. And sources from Ukraine's military intelligence, the HUR, claimed responsibility for the daring raid, which satellite imagery had revealed 11 Russian aircraft there, including Tu-95s and Tu-160s, stationed at the base prior to the strikes just the day earlier. And although we don't yet have much visual reports to confirm the success of these strikes, we don't yet have the update satellite imagery to deny it either. Although we did see explosions rock the airfield from a short distance by shaking windows and triggering alarms. But we'll just have to wait and see the outcome here, we should get an update quite shortly on this. But who knows, maybe it was just a psyop of a few Ukrainian drones swinging that way to get Russia thinking twice about where to station any available remaining air defense systems deep within Russia. Then headed across to the Ukrainian map today, where it's been limited in the way of changes on the map, although there has been no shortage of frontline engagements. Take, for example, this occurrence near Avdiivka, where a Ukrainian drone from the 25th Airborne Brigade watches a pair of Russian T-72s burn after a failed assault. And it very much reminds me of the short-sighted, attritional style of fighting that Russia has chosen to adopt in this war, which is certainly a quantity over quality methodology. That would be great for Russia if they had an infinite stockpile of armored vehicles, which they don't. Or how about an infinite production capacity for new armored vehicles? That would be nice for Russia too, and yet I'm scratching my head wondering about this, because we've never really seen anything new produced and fielded by the Russian army. We've seen, for instance, upgrades on existing tanks, main battle tanks, but it's mostly just refurbs of, say, the old T-55 tanks from 1955. Even then, hardly refurbed at all. Unless, of course, you count an ineffective cope cage as a worthy upgrade. Then, also in the east at Berdichi on the Avdiivka axis, Ukrainian forces destroyed a pair of Russian BMP-3 infantry fighting vehicles with FPV munitions. The hatches were open, so they were likely abandoned, but both suffered those iconically catastrophic detonations, with one seemingly being reduced to atoms. We then saw the similar case of a Russian BMP-2 abandoned and destroyed by joystick and FPV. So as you'll see there, fly on in, walk right out. Well, nobody's walking out of that mess. Then also of note, we saw recently a Russian Shahed drone that was downed still intact, complements of electronic warfare. And it's interesting because there were a few reports just 6 or 8 weeks ago stating that the Russian-produced Shahed drones were somehow extremely susceptible to some powerful new EW or electronic warfare measures that the AFU Ukraine had in their possession. But at the same time, it also seemed like the AFU were being very careful not to elaborate too much on that OPSEC info, if you will, at the time. But in other words, it's not taken a single missile to take out these bad boys. At least some of them. Then headed across on the map to the embattled village of Robotyne, which is situated in Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia Oblast, where spokesperson for the Ukraine's Southern Operational Command described the situation in this region as an influx but not critical. So here we have it, Robotyne, a key location on the main road to the Russian-occupied cities of Tokmak and Melitopol, of which Robotyne has been the main focal point of intense fighting since its liberation by Ukrainian forces from many, many months ago now. And despite Russia's numerical advantage, give credit where credit is due, and their relentless attacks, including the use of human wave tactics and counter-battery fire, Ukrainian defenders have successfully thwarted 6 assault attempts in the past day alone. Then we'll move further west to the bridgeheads in the Kherson region, including Krinky, because here we have between 60 and 100 Ukrainian Marines constantly on the move in offensive and defensive postures to put up a fight and escape the incessant attacks of the Russian forces, and have not only held their positions, but may have even expanded their bridgeheads further on the Krinky direction, but also if we move a bit closer to the Antonivka Bridge, as ongoing reports have continued to suggest that the Ukrainian troops have established another cross-river bridgehead near the ruins of the bridge, using the damaged structure for cover, which this map is not shy to suggest as well, as you can see it there listed in green. And on that note, it is in fact somewhat identical to the Russian version of the same map, in terms of area of control, as posted by the Russian telegrammer Romanov. Then we'll head quite a bit north now, as Russia unleashed a barrage of missiles against Ukraine overnight, with the attack originating from the north, which saw a total of 31 missiles launched, with Kyiv being the primary target. So 29 X-101 cruise missiles and 2 of the Kinzhal ballistic missiles all shot down. So Russia was clearly angered by all of those recent one-way UAV drone sorties causing mayhem and destruction on Russian oil refineries, depots, and possibly air bases too, leading Russia to, in a hothead fashion, try to strike at the heart of what they call the Kiev regime, which is a pronunciation based on the Russian language rendition of the city's name. Ukrainians, however, pronounce it as Kyiv, a pronunciation that reflects the Ukrainian language and history. Oh, and something I really meant to mention earlier. Back into Russia's Belgorod region, as incredible footage showed Russian forces unsuccessfully assault on a building with the anti-Kremlin Russian Volunteer Corps fighters inside. However, the sheer ineptitude of Putin's soldiers led to a grenade misthrow, taking out one of their own in the process, and then they go on to abandon their position. Now, I can't show the full video scene or even the stills because the platform will just block this entire video upload. But as for this event, it's actually the first attempt I've seen of Putin's soldiers attempting a room clearing. Gee, with teammates like that, who needs enemies? Oh, and by the way, all recorded by the friendly's drone camera from above, for which you'll then see the zoomed out wide angle where this isolated location was actually quite exposed and not seemingly much of a threat for Putin's thugs in the first place. Then headed across to some news updates for the day. So Spain is readying a fresh shipment of 19 Leopard 2A4 tanks to bolster Ukraine's armed forces, according to the La Vanguardia, citing Defense Ministry sources. The tanks are currently being prepared for sending to Ukraine, so 19 Leopard 2s, not bad. Then in some other news, the partially recognised Republic of Kosovo will provide Ukraine with 2 military aid packages shortly. And by partially recognised, I mean roughly 100 United Nations members, including most of Europe and the States, recognising but not Russia or China. And so the aid consists of mortar rounds, trucks, and armoured vehicles. Then as for a neat little Ukrainian hardware update, a real quick one, this one. So we see footage from tests on the training ground of the newest Ukrainian ground drone named the Termite, which can deliver ammunition and evacuate the wounded. Then in some more news, the Dutch defense minister has just visited Ukraine, meeting with President Zelensky. So during the visit, it was announced that the Netherlands will procure 150 million euros worth of munitions for Ukraine's F-16 jets directly from the industry. All of which comes amid the backdrop of the Netherlands and Denmark leading the fighter jet coalition for Ukraine, pledging to deliver dozens of F-16 fighters. And the Netherlands has also pledged 100 million euros to support the Czechia plan to procure ammunition rounds for Ukraine from outside of the EU. That's the 1.5 million that of shells that I've mentioned several times before. Then, in some other news updates, satellite reconnaissance data reveals that Russia is actively developing port infrastructure in Abkhazia, a region occupied by Russia on Georgian territory. The newly constructed military port is situated a mere 30 kilometers from Georgian-controlled land, raising concerns about Russia's intentions in the area. Russia had previously announced plans to base its warships at the port, a move that Georgia's foreign ministry strongly condemned as a, quote, flagrant violation of Georgia's sovereignty and territorial integrity. So Russia seeks to continue to build its naval forces and to exert greater influence in the region. But this isn't 2021, and it's fair to deduce at this stage that Ukraine will be producing some special sea babies, which will just end up causing another embarrassment for Russia's navy. Then in some other compelling news, so Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu has announced the creation of 2 new ground armies, along with 16 new brigades and 14 new divisions, as reported by the War Donbass channel on Telegram. And given figures like these, that's hundreds of thousands of new recruits for the Russian army. However, the source of the personnel for these new units remains unclear, sparking some speculation about a new post-election mobilization in Russia. But that's only the half of it, because it would be more than ever a logistical nightmare for Russia, but also a training nightmare, where these new intakes won't even learn so much as how to, pull a pin from a grenade. Plus, will they even get equipped with a grenade or enough weapons? Or maybe it will be a classic case of one man gets a rifle, the other one follows without one. But either way, there is a lot of challenges associated with bringing together as many divisions or brigades as these to the fore. Then moving across to a quick funny to round it all off today, guys. So ballot box stuffers, as 2 women and Russian babushkas in training, it would seem, in St. Petersburg were noted crawling into a voting station after hours in very stealthily done fashion to stuff the ballot box, as the security guard literally looks then walks the other way. And just for legitimacy and checking of sources, it's not an old video or anything, you can clearly see the V symbol apparent on so many voting stations during this election cycle throughout Russia in this video as well. So I'm sure these babushkas in training got not 1, but 2 sacks of potatoes each for their efforts. It's just a special voting operation to keep little Putin in power. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks again for watching. Please continue to like and comment. I really do appreciate it all, as I usually say. And yeah, I just can't thank you guys enough for sticking around. And I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers.